Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild. We are exploring a truly fascinating and honestly a pretty provocative synthesis of archaeology, ancient texts, and hidden history. This is all derived straight from Joseph P. Farrell's groundbreaking book, Genes, Giants, Monsters, and Men. We're going to look at how modern genetics, legends of literal monsters, ancient artifacts, and the very origins of human civilization itself might all be deeply interconnected. It's a journey that asks us to look at ancient history through a completely different lens, one that involves a highly advanced ancient civilization, an interplanetary cosmic war, and a group of surviving elites who supposedly guided humanity's reconstruction. Okay, let's just jump right in. Picture this. It's 1919, and the renowned writer and anomaly researcher Charles Fort proposes a pretty startling idea. He wrote, and I quote, "I think we're property, that once upon a time this earth was no man's land, that other worlds explored and colonized here and fought among themselves for possession." But Fort didn't stop there. He went on to suspect that a hidden cult or order right here on Earth acts as bellwethers, basically directing the rest of us on behalf of these mysterious, unknown owners. It instantly establishes this eerie, mysterious tone about our origins, right? It really challenges us to ask if the forces shaping human history have actually always been visible to us. Now, to grapple with these mysteries, the source material neutrally contrasts what it calls two totally different fairy tales of human history. On one side, we've got the standard evolutionary model that you'd read in any academic textbook. A gradual, slow climb from primordial soup to complex life, leading to humans who just hunted and gathered for over 100,000 years before suddenly, almost inexplicably, inventing incredibly advanced civilizations like Sumer and Egypt practically out of thin air. But if we take ancient texts seriously, they don't describe a slow, gradual climb at all. They describe these wild, chaotic tales of genetic manipulation, of actual giants and monsters, and a highly destructive interplanetary cosmic war fought with advanced tech by a pantheon of powerful beings. So let's move on to our first major clue: Coldaway's Babylonian monster. To piece this alternative history together, we have to look at some hard, physical evidence. Back in 1918, the famous German architect Robert Coldaway unearthed the fabled city of Babylon, including the absolutely breathtaking Ishtar Gate. It was a monumental achievement for archaeology. But the deeper he dug, well, the stranger the picture became. The gate was covered in these beautiful, enameled brickworks depicting conventional, totally normal animals, like bulls. But right smack in the middle of them was something that posed a massive, baffling problem for standard historical timelines. Now, what's really interesting about this specific detail is the creature placed right alongside those regular animals. This is the Sarouche, and to Coldaway's highly trained scientific eye, this wasn't just some flight of artistic fancy. Based on exactly how it was depicted, Coldaway argued that this was meant to represent a living, breathing animal. The artists of Babylon rendered this strange creature with the exact same anatomical precision and absolute seriousness as the mundane animals flanking it. But just listen to the impossible anatomy of the Sarouche. It features the forelegs of a massive feline, like a panther. The hind legs, those belong to a bird of prey. It has a long, scaly or feathered body, capped off by a snake's head with a prominent upright horn and a spiraling tail ending in a scorpion sting. It is literally a chimera. Because it was rendered with such specific, unchanging detail across thousands of years of Mesopotamian art, Coldaway actually desperately attempted to classify it scientifically. He even went so far as to suggest it might be a surviving dinosaur, maybe some ancient relative of the iguanodon just wandering around in ancient Babylon. Which leads us to a fundamental question you really have to ask yourself. Why would the Babylonians place a completely mythical, seemingly impossible creature directly alongside very real, living animals? They placed the Sarouche in the exact same context as the aurochs, which was a very real type of wild cattle alive at the time. The sheer consistency of the artwork suggests they genuinely believed it was real. So was it a surviving dinosaur, or perhaps, as our source text implies, a genetically engineered monster left over from some ancient, high-tech civilization? All right, let's shift gears to clue number 2, the Babel and Bible controversy. So while Coldaway was over there scratching his head over physical monsters, Another academic was uncovering some seriously weird textual anomalies. In 1902, an Assyriologist named Friedrich Delitzsch sparked a controversy so explosive Kaiser Wilhelm II literally had to personally intervene to calm the public down. In a lecture he called Babel and Bible, Delitzsch impartially laid out ancient artifacts to make a staggering claim: foundational biblical stories heavily borrowed from much older Babylonian myths. And this brilliantly illustrates his point. Take a Babylonian cylinder seal showing a man, a woman, a tree, and a serpent, an undeniable parallel to the fall of man, right? Beside it, the god Marduk uses thunderbolts to slay a dragon, perfectly mirroring the Book of Revelation and St. George. The implication was crystal clear. The religious texts guiding modern civilization were heavily rooted in ancient and perhaps manipulated mythologies of the Middle East. But Delitzsch didn't just have some neat artistic parallels to show off. He had a literal textual smoking gun. He presented these fragile, broken clay tablets, filled with cuneiform script. And get this, they date back to the age of King Hammurabi of Babylon. That is long before the events of the Exodus. And scratched right into these ancient pagan tablets were 3 names of profound, far-reaching religious importance. Those names contain the root word Yahweh or Yahweh. Yeah, the proper name of God, the mysterious 4-letter tetragrammaton. According to the standard biblical timeline, that name was first revealed to Moses much, much later in history. The massive implication of the name Yahweh appearing totally out of place in ancient Babylonian commerce and culture directly challenged the fundamental timelines of revealed religion. Because if these sacred names and stories predated the biblical narrative by that much, it suggested that religion itself might have been a tool inherited and adopted from an even older source. Which brings us to the core of Farrell's synthesis, the hidden elite agenda. Let's move to how this builds the author's primary hypothesis, because how do impossible chimeras and overlapping religious texts actually tie together? Well, Farrell argues that following a devastating interplanetary cosmic war that completely shattered a highly advanced global civilization, a surviving elite had to rebuild from the ashes. And their agenda was incredibly methodical. Step 1. Reestablish commerce. To do this globally without advanced modern tools, they use the constant geodetic phenomena of the Earth and stars to create accurate weights and measures. Step 2. Create and manipulate religions. By using stories of the ancient gods, they fostered social cohesion, commanded obedience, and essentially guided civilizations from behind the curtain. And finally, step 3, which is definitely the most profound, intervene in and manipulate human DNA itself. So the crucial point here is captured beautifully in this quote from the source. DNA itself is a monument, an artifact, a text that can be decoded via the description techniques of modern genetics. Think back to that impossible Suresh from Babylon. If an ancient elite truly had the technology to wage an interplanetary cosmic war, it stands to reason they likely had the biological technology to engineer life. The author suggests that human DNA, right alongside those crazy legends of giants and chimerical monsters, are the surviving biological monuments of this ancient science. We aren't just looking at broken artifacts buried in the sand anymore. The artifacts are buried inside our very cells. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly profound question to chew on. What is the true connection between this hidden elite agenda, manipulating commerce, religion, and our very DNA, and the cataclysmic cosmic war of the gods? Are the myths we so easily dismissed as fairy tales actually the encrypted history of a civilization desperately trying to rebuild itself? Or perhaps trying to keep humanity managed as property, just like Charles Fort suspected all the way back in 1919. The evidence really invites us to question absolutely everything we know about our past.